Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to everyone. My name is Samir Rahman and I am president of RAS SLMC. We are excited to present you with our first day of series on core foundation, which is a part of third online research series by RAS Research and Academic Society SLMC Sahiwal. For Tilawat, I present to you with Samullah, a class from S16.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فيها فاكهة والنخل ذات الأكمام والحب ذو العصف والريحان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان خلق الإنسان من صلصال كالفخار وخلق الجان من مارج من نار فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان صدق الله العظيم.
Thank you very much, Samullah. And we start with the name of Allah Almighty. For our today's session, I welcome Maida Batul, President of RAS SLMC, who has such great leadership skills and have vast experience in research methodology, in cross-sectional studies, and have previously mentored many students at our college and outside the college. So I welcome Maida Batul. On to you, Maida. Please start sharing your slides and start the lecture.
Assalamu alaikum, Sami, and thank you so much for the introduction. Although I believe that I do not qualify for any of the things that you have stated just now, but thank you very much. I'm sharing the screen. Just a minute. So is it visible?
Yes, yes, it is visible.
And am I audible? Can you all hear me?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, then I guess we should start. So, hello everyone. I'm Maida Batul and I'm a final year medical student at Sahiwal Medical College. And the topic I have to present today is research methodology, which is going to be a brief introduction. Because, as I say, research methodology isn't something which can be covered in one single session, that too of just 1 hour, or it might extend a little bit more than just 1 hour, but again, research methodology is a huge topic. So every part of the research methodology is a topic in its own, and it's really not possible to cover each and everything in one single session. So we're just going to go briefly through the different steps of research methodology. And by a step-by-step research walkthrough, what I mean is that uh, there's going to be a virtual simulation of a research project. This is how I've designed these slides, and this is what we're going to do. So we are going to assume, you and I are going to assume that we're doing a research project from the start till the end. So we'll design a research project and then we'll work through the various steps of that research project till the very end, so that it is not really a very passive activity. And I'll try to keep it as interactive as I can. But let's see how it goes. So to begin with, we need to find a problem. So research always starts with a problem. You might remember that chapter uh, in our biology textbook of ninth class, the second chapter. The name of that chapter was solving a biological problem or solving a scientific problem. So a study always starts with a problem, a certain problem that needs to be addressed, a question that needs to be answered. Okay, so so we need to find a problem in order to start a research project. And for that, I'm going to ask you some questions. You're going to respond to me either by turning on your mics or by typing it in the chat box. And then we'll formulate a problem statement or simply a research question. So my question to you guys is this one. Who is better at academics, day scholars or hostelers? Hostelites, okay. Day scholars, okay. Keep going. Hostelites, day scholars. Okay. So we are having conflicting reviews. Depends, yeah, depends. I agree. Day scholars again. Okay. There are many votes for day scholars and then hostelite. Okay. Okay, so I got the general idea, and the general idea is that I don't think we can say for sure. Of course, we can say for sure, and because we're not sure, we're going to, this is a problem. So let's see how we deal with it. So okay, so my next question is, I'm going to turn on, and my next question is, who has better health in your opinion, day scholars or hostelers? In general, of course, it also is a relative thing. It depends on the circumstances. But in general, what do you believe? Who has better health? Okay, day scholars are better health. So I don't see any conflict in hostelers. Okay, I guess you're the only one who's saying hostelers are better health. They have family care. Of course, I agree because day scholars, SK, because day scholars have, they enjoy their home cooking and they live with their family and they have their family support. So in a lot of the aspects, like in terms of mental health, in terms of physical health, we assume that day scholars must be living in better conditions, must be in better conditions. So okay, so we see over here that there's a conflict. So based on simply based on the perceptions of different people, I can say that we're unable to reach a certain conclusion, and so this is a problem, right? So you might say, why do we have to, go with this simple problem or this insignificant problem? It isn't really insignificant in my opinion, but it's a simpler one. It's a simple topic. And I guess in my opinion, when you're starting to learn something, it's better to start with simple and easy things than with complex topics. So I thought it better to start with this simple topic rather than a complex clinical topic. You might have loved that more, but I thought it was a better option. So we have over here a problem. And a lot of us actually face this problem. So whenever, when we are getting admitted to medical colleges or simply people when getting admitted into different institutes for higher education, they do come across this question of, whether they should live in their home city and study at an institute which is situated in their home city, or should they move to another city in order to, pursue higher education. So living in hostels. So this is a question that a lot of us encounter, and many of the factors that we do take into account are these. So where the academics, so academically, who would be better, and academically, who's going to perform better, and then also health-wise, who's better. So we can say these are the factors that at least I had considered the academics a lot when considering my choice of um, institute selection. So moving forward, we have found a problem, and our problem is we need to find out who is better at academics and who has better health. Moving next. I'm sorry, my screen. Okay, so now we need to find an answer. So what do we do? What do we usually do whenever we have a question? So I have a question. Let's say I'm studying some subject. So let's say I'm studying medicine, or maybe one of you has a problem. You're studying, let's say, biochemistry or physiology, and you encounter a problem. You have a question in your mind, and you want that question answered. What do you do? How do you go about finding the answer to that question? So most of us usually go to like Google. We go to Google and search the answer, and ChatGPT, yes, of course, ChatGPT and the various AI engines available these days. So what do they do? ChatGPT or in Google's also there's an AI review at the start of every search that you do. So at the start PubMed, of course, we're getting to that PubMed and Google Scholar. So at the start of every Google page, you get an AI review, and what that AI does is that it gives you the crux of all the blog posts and all the articles written on that particular topic, and gives you an answer. So that's one way of going about, finding answer to a question. Then another way would be to consult a textbook, right? You would agree with that. Sometimes we just consult a textbook. And if we are unable to find an answer even in that textbook, or if we're unable to find, or if we're unable to understand the things given in the textbook, we might even consult our professor or teacher. So that's someone who can explain that topic, explain that answer to us. So these are the various ways. So just like that, whenever we encounter a scientific problem, like in this case, we have a scientific problem. Researchers do is that they go about searching answers in the various research databases available out there. So it can be Google Scholar, it can be PubMed, it can be PubMed. So these are the various engines. So there are many, many more. So, but I don't think we need to list them all out here. So mainly these three, and I've listed PubMed because this is a website where all the research is conducted in Pakistan. Are You can find those researchers over there. So if you're trying to find if a study on a certain particular topic has been conducted in Pakistan or not, then you simply go to this website and search it out. Okay, so this is a great asset in that sense. So you go to these databases and then you search the internet in order to find an answer to that question. So moving next. Here's a video. It's a video of me. So as I said in the start, that we are going to assume that we are doing the study together. So I and you are doing the study together. So the next step is literature review, and this is me doing literature review. So we're together doing it. We go to Google Scholar and we simply type in our keywords. Our keywords in this case would be day scholars, hostelers, academic performance, or maybe health performance. Sorry, health status. So these things. So I'm going to type in the keywords, and Google Scholar is going to give me a list of articles. And what I'll do next is that I'll simply go through those various articles that I find on Google Scholar, and I read through those articles to find an answer to the question I'm searching. And I might even, download the relevant articles, the articles I find relevant. So this is simply a literature review, but you're going to have a detailed session on this thing, which is going to be presented by Ayat. So this is just a brief overview of just showing you that we're doing this. Okay, so that it sticks in your memory that we have done something like this in between. So going through the various articles, reading the abstracts, or maybe complete articles, depending on what the article says or if it is relevant to you or not. In this case, what I felt when I was doing this study was most of the studies, like if it is a study which is conducted in a different country, what good will it do to me? Okay, so if it's a study conducted in a country which has totally different circumstances than mine, then it is no good to me. So their hostel conditions might be different, their academic conditions might be different, their mess might be different. So these things affect different each and every one of us. So it was important to have a study which is conducted in our setting. Do you guys understand this point? why it is important to have a study conducted in your setting, in Punjab at least. So if it was a study conducted in any medical college of Punjab, any medical college, whatever it may be, it would have been relevant to me or to my institute. But if it's a study conducted in a totally different institute in a different country, then it isn't. It is, of course, relevant to a certain extent, but not quite relevant. So this was to say that we sometimes do find a lot of studies on a particular topic, but we're still unable to reach a certain conclusion because of lack of data on that topic in our setting. So that's a form of research gap. So, anyways, the video is done, and now we move forward. So next up is our hypothesis. After we have done the literature review, we are going to synthesize a hypothesis. A hypothesis simply is a statement which proposes a relationship between two variables. And a hypothesis is something the researcher is trying to prove. So let's see the definition. Yeah, there are two types of hypotheses, the null hypothesis and the alternative hypothesis. I stated the definition. Now I'll explain what an alternative hypothesis is and what a null hypothesis is, and then I would like you guys to synthesize a hypothesis based on these. So an alternative hypothesis is the one that states that there does exist a certain relationship between the two variables which are in question, whereas the null hypothesis completely nullifies the alternative hypothesis. So the null hypothesis would say there is no relationship between the two variables in question. In our case, if academic performance is one variable and the residential status is another variable, what would the alternative hypothesis be? Type in the hypothesis, whatever you think it will be. Okay, so there's no relationship between, yeah, null hypothesis would be great, great, amazing. And the alternative hypothesis would be that there is a relationship between academic performance and residential status. So great, Raima. Okay. So this is the alternative hypothesis, that there's a correlation of residential status with the academic performance of medical students. And the null hypothesis would be there's no correlation of residential status with the academic performance of medical students. And also just remember that we're also considering the health status. So I haven't written down the other two hypotheses, but there's another alternative hypothesis stating that there is a correlation of residential status with the health status of medical students, and the null hypothesis likewise. So now we move on to designing our study. So what do I mean by designing our study? We need to choose a certain study type. We need to choose a certain study design. So we have broadly these three different study designs. I'll briefly explain these three to you guys. First one is a qualitative design, and it simply, as the name implies, a qualitative study is very much based on words, based on the perceptions of individuals. So it's a study that is based on interviews, based on the what, how, and where of the subject. So in this type of study, we interview people either individually, like one-on-one interviews, or a focal, or in the form of focal groups. So we form groups of students and then we interview them. And then those interviews are recorded, and those recordings are later on transcribed. And from those transcriptions, certain themes are derived. So that's how they're analyzed. And then later on, the results are published. This is a qualitative design. And then a quantitative design would be the one which deals with numbers and figures. Okay, so a quantitative design would quantify each and every variable and then analyze them such a way that certain results are derived, and then those results are published. So these are the two types. And the third one, which is a mixed method design, is the one which is a mixture of qualitative and quantitative design. So, so we can perform interviews at the same time as we are calculating or quantifying certain other variables, and then we combine the results of those interviews and those quantitative variables to yield a certain result or a certain outcome. So this is the mixed method design. In our case, in this study which I had conducted, it's a quantitative study. So I have basically quantified each and every single variable. Our three main variables are, can you list out the three main variables of our study? Do you guys know? Health, yes, health status is one variable. What's the second variable? Academic status, great. And the third variable is residential status, great, 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 amazing. So these are the three variables, three main variables. There are multiple others. As we form a questionnaire, you see there are multiple other variables as well. But these are the three main variables because they are included in the title of our study. These are the main that we are studying. So these three variables. And we're going to compare the residential status with the academic status and the health status. So we can say that is anyone trying to say anything?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, yes.
क्वांटिटेटिव स्टडी जो होती है वो ऑब्जेक्टिव होती है कि वो ओपिनियन से उससे मैटर नहीं करता
Yes, yes.
तो क्या मिक्स्ड मेथड भी इक्वली ऑब्जेक्टिव है जितना क्वांटिटेटिव है?
नहीं, mixed method is a mixture of qualitative and quantitative. It's not entirely objective. Like qualitative is a lot subjective when we're interviewing people, and then quantitative is objective study, you can say, because it is totally based on the researcher's discretion, you can say. But mixed method is a mixture of both qualitative aspect and quantitative aspect. Okay, so where was I? So I was saying, the variables. So we have these variables. In our variables, the residential status is an independent variable because that is not going to change. And the two other ones, the academic status and the health status, are dependent variables because they are going to depend on the residential status in our study, in our case. So this is how we take things. So these are the two variables, and we're going to derive a certain relationship between these two variables. So I chosen the quantitative approach because I was less interested in people's perceptions and more interested in, you can say, the actual results. So I wanted to, for example, for the academic status, I had taken the professional exam marks, last professional exam marks of students to quantify that variable. And then for health status also, you might say, how can we quantify the health status of a person? So there are tools that exist out there. There are scores and questionnaires that exist out there, which are designed in such a way that they give you a certain score. So they give you at the end a certain number, a certain figure. So they actually quantify a certain variable, which is health status, into numbers, and then those numbers can be analyzed. So we'll see how we select and use a certain tool in our research to quantify the health status of individual. Okay, so moving forward. So, okay, here's just a broad overview of the different research study types we have, because I thought it was important to introduce you to the types of different studies available. So we'll only discuss them very briefly because each and every single type which is stated here is a topic in its own. We cannot really go into the individual details of each single type, So we're just going to discuss them briefly. So the two broad categories, first of all, are the primary research and the secondary research. Primary research is the one which is based on primary data. Primary data is the one that the researcher collects himself. So it's an original study where the researcher designs a study and then he collects the data himself. And a secondary research is the type of research which depends on or which relies on secondary data collected by some other researcher previously in a study which was conducted previously, and then he uses that research or the data in that research to derive a certain outcome, a certain conclusion, to reach a certain conclusion. So let's just quickly discuss the secondary research first. So it includes the reviews as have been stated here, the systematic review, the narrative review, the meta-analyses. So what these type of studies do is that, let's say you are someone who is interested in knowing something. You have a question and you're trying to find an answer to that question. Now, when you go to the research databases, you encounter a whole lot of different articles. So there are some 50, 60 articles on a single topic. So it isn't really feasible to go through all those articles to reach, to find your answer, to reach a certain conclusion. What these reviews do is that they combine those studies. So they take the data from all of those studies and then analyze the data again, and then reach a certain conclusion, and then provide or present that conclusion, that results to the reader. Okay, so they basically summarize the whole research conducted on a certain topic, and hence they simplify a lot of things for researchers, fellow researchers. And then primary research is the one which is conducted. It's the original form of research. So a researcher designs a study from scratch, and then he carries out that study, and then he, collects the data, original data, and then he formulates the results and publishes it. So that's primary research, broadly categorized into observational and interventional. Interventional research is experimental research, one in which you're making certain intervention. So, for example, the two broad categories again are randomized controlled trials and non-randomized controlled trials. These are the gold standards of medical research, randomized controlled trials. So, what they do in these trials is that they introduce a certain intervention, let's say a drug, to a group of people which are called the controls, the cases, and then the controls are given placebo, and then they study the the effect of that drug on that select number of individuals, and document any results, any changes, any improvements that have occurred later on. And then we have observational studies. So descriptive and analytical. In descriptive, we have case reports and case series. Case reports are simply studies stating certain interesting cases. So, for example, you're working at a hospital or at a clinic. I'm sorry. So you're working at a hospital and you encounter a certain patient who has a rare disease, or maybe you encounter a certain clinical manifestation of a disease which is rare, or maybe you encounter a drug reaction which is rare, which is rare, then that's a rare case. And documenting that rare case is what formulates a case report. And then case series are a series of those rare cases that you identify, and then you document them and publish them. That's what makes a case series. And coming on to cross-sectional, case control, and cohort study. Remember two terms: exposure and outcome, or maybe a risk factor and a disease. So exposure is something that happens, and outcome is something that results due to that exposure. So we have cross-sectional study, and cross-sectional study is the one in which we study, or we take into account the exposure and the outcome at the same time, on the same population. So it gives you a sort of like a snapshot of that problem, that thing that you're studying. Case control is the study that deals with the disease people. So it starts with the outcome, and then it tracks back to the risk factors. So we start with a number of patients. We're going to interview those patients and we'll try to see what risk factors they had in common which led to that disease. So it's a retrospective sort of a study, case control. And then there are cohort studies. Now, cohort studies are the ones in which you start with the exposure. And cohort studies are the best at identifying the relationship, the causation, of an exposure and an outcome. So in a cohort study, you start with an exposure. So let's say smoking. So you start with smokers, and then you track those smokers over the span of next 5 years or 10 years or maybe 20 years to see if they develop lung cancers, to see if they develop any other type of cancers. So in this case, the cancers are the outcome, the disease. So cohort studies are the ones where you start with the exposure, and then you go to the outcome. So this is just very broadly and very briefly, the different types of researches that are out there that we can perform. So if sorry, I'm residential status for renewable. मेथड्स को इजी वर्डिंग में समझाते हैं, समझ नहीं आई क्लियरली. ओके, नीचे आप रिसर्च, अभी आप रिसर्च डिजाइन का पूछ रही हो. या अगर रिसर्च स्टडीज का पूछ रही हो और आपको समझ नहीं आई, देन आई कैन एलैबोरेट. Okay, or maybe we can discuss these things in the end. But चलिए ठीक है, we'll discuss the questions in the end then. Just let me know if these different study types are clear to you guys. If there's any confusion, if I haven't explained some study type accurately, or if there's any confusion, then you may ask. Okay, I'm moving next. I'm sorry, I'm not reading the chat like as I'm presenting. So after we have selected a certain design, and after we have determined our study type, then what do we need next? What do we need to do next? क्वालिटेटिव, क्वांटिटेटिव और मिक्स्ड मेथड्स. अच्छा, मैं थोड़ा सा जल्दी से बता देती हूँ ताकि वो एक दफा क्लियर हो जाए. तो क्वालिटेटिव स्टडी वो होगी जिसमें आप इंटरव्यूज ले रहे हैं लोगों के या पार्टिसिपेंट्स के. तो आप उनके इंटरव्यूज कर रहे हैं और आप उनसे पूछ रहे हैं सवाल, जो भी आपका टॉपिक है आप उसके मुतालिक उनसे सवाल कर रहे हैं और वो आपको जवाब दे रहे हैं. आप उन इंटरव्यूज को या तो साथ साथ लिख सकते हैं या आप उन्हें रिकॉर्ड कर सकते हैं. फिर जब आप उन्हें रिकॉर्ड कर लेते हैं तो उसके बाद आप उनकी ट्रांसक्रिप्ट जनरेट करते हैं. ठीक है, यानी उस इंटरव्यू में जितनी बात हुई थी वो सबको रिकॉर्ड करते हैं. फिर उसके बाद उस इंटरव्यू में से थीम्स निकालते हैं, यानी कि जो जो डिफरेंट, क्योंकि एक पार्टिसिपेंट तो नहीं था ना, काफी सारे पार्टिसिपेंट्स थे, दे माइट हैव बीन सर्टेन ग्रुप्स ऑफ पीपल. ठीक है, तो उन सबके आपने ट्रांसक्रिप्ट निकाले, फिर आपने उन सबकी जो बातें थी उनमें से थीम्स निकाली और उन थीम्स को इकट्ठा किया और फिर उन्हें जो है वो बाद में पब्लिश किया कि आपका जो रिजल्ट था वो ये था, या आपको जो अपनी स्टडी से मिला वो ये मिला था. Not really an expert of qualitative study. I haven't really performed a qualitative study yet. I'm more interested in quantitative studies, and those are the ones I've performed till yet. But this is what I know of qualitative study. Then quantitative study वो होती है जिसमें आप numbers, जिसमें आप quantify करते हैं चीजों को. Let's say blood pressure, ठीक है, या age, या हमारे केस में academic status जो है वो हम किस तरह quantify करें मार्क्स से. तो आपने क्वांटिफाई किया मुख्तलिफ वेरिएबल्स को, आपने क्वांटिफाई कर लिया, फिर उसके बाद आपने क्या किया, उन्हें एनालाइज किया. नंबर्स को एनालाइज करना बहुत आसान होता है. ठीक है, तो आप नंबर्स को किसी सॉफ्टवेयर में डाल दो और वो सॉफ्टवेयर जो है वो एनालिसिस करके आपको एक कोई ना कोई रिजल्ट दे देता है. तो ये क्वांटिटेटिव मेथड होता है. और मिक्स मेथड वो होता है जिसमें आप दोनों चीजों का इस्तेमाल करते हो, यानी आप इंटरव्यू भी करते हो लोगों के और साथ में आप कुछ मतलब कुछ डिफरेंट वेरिएबल्स को जो है वो क्वांटिफाई भी करते हो और फिर दोनों को मिला के आप एक कंक्लूजन निकालते हो, एक रिजल्ट निकालते हो. So let me know if it is clear on you. Acha, I'm moving forward. So as I said that we need a certain tool to measure or quantify the variables. For academic status, I have specified that we are going to use the marks of last professional exam. ठीक है, हमने participants से कहा that they need to tell us their marks of last professional exams, and that's how we quantified the academic status. And then the second variable we had was the health status. So the health status was we needed a tool to quantify or to assess to assess the health status of a person. How are we? Health is a broad term. Okay, health is a really broad term. So how can a person assess the health status of a of another person, because health isn't just physical health, it is mental health, it is emotional health, it is a lot of different things. So how can we quantify that, or how can we assess that? So we definitely need a tool here, we definitely need a certain tool. And in our case, as it is a cross-sectional study, we there are different tools that you can use. So you can use surveys or questionnaires, standardized questionnaires, then interviews. Interviews in case of qualitative studies, not quantitative studies, and then secondary data. Secondary data, of course, is used in case of secondary researches. Ours is a primary research, and ours is a cross-sectional study. So we used a questionnaire. So we need a tool, and we need to find a certain questionnaire. How do we find questionnaires? किसी को पता है questionnaires ढूंढते कैसे हैं? If we need a certain questionnaire, a standardized questionnaire, if we need to find that what questionnaires exist out there for assessing the health, there are multiple questionnaires for that. So how are you going to find them? How are you going to select them? So anyone having any idea? Great, from previous studies. Manazza, I'm not past relevant articles, amazing. That is most right. Yes, 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 yes. So you all have the basic idea, and I'm glad you all have that. So we do literature review again. So okay, that's right. Yes. So we get a tool, we get a questionnaires from literature review. If I can give you a pro tip in research, in original research, that pro tip would be you can find every answer in the literature review. So if you're designing a study from scratch, from start till the end, go to previous literature and see how other researchers have done that study or have done different studies on that topic. And then you'll get different ideas and different tools and different methods of doing of studying the same subject, and you'll get the whole idea of how you're going to do that. So if you're trying to find a tool, a questionnaire, a standardized questionnaire, read studies on that variable or on that subject, and you'll see the different tools that people have used, and then you can use the similar tools, or maybe with certain changes. Then if you're struggling with, let's say, sample size, or you don't know how to calculate sample size, just go and read articles. Okay, just go and read articles on your topic, and you're going to find different articles stating explicitly how they calculated their sample size, and you'll get a general idea of how can I calculate a sample size based on the topic that I have. And if you're struggling with data analysis, you are confused how to analyze a certain score, how to analyze a certain tool, or simply how to analyze two variables, then just go and read articles, and you'll see how other researchers have analyzed data, have analyzed certain variables, and then you can get a rough idea from that, and then you can replicate that. So a pro tip that I can give you, if you're just starting with research, then it is to read and read and read articles, and you'll get to know everything you need to know about a certain topic. So is this clear? Now I'm moving forward. Okay. Okay, so I was talking about the tool, and this is the tool, the short form 36. Don't go to the name. This is SF36. SF36 is the tool, is the questionnaire that we had used to quantify health status. And 36 indicates that it has 36 items. By items, I mean questions. So it has 36 questions, quite a huge number. So 36 questions, and it divides health into these 8 domains: physical functioning, role functioning, physical, emotional, energy, fatigue, emotional well-being, social functioning, pain, and general health. These are the 8 domains it divides health into, and then it gives you means and standard deviations of each and every one of these domains. Okay, so this is how this questionnaire or this tool quantifies health. So I found this questionnaire somewhere, and I thought it would be good to use this one, and so I decided upon this one questionnaire uh, for this study. Okay, now we need a sample size. So there are 2 questions written here. Can you answer these questions for me? Why exactly do we need a sample size, and what is a sample? Okay, are you guys listening? So, okay, let me explain why we need a sample size. So if we are conducting a study on medical students of Sahiwal Medical College, there are some 500, 600 students, okay, roughly. And for that study to be conducted, do I need to ask every single one of the students to fill in my questionnaire? Am I going to do that? Asking every single person in SLMC to fill the questionnaire? Yes or no? No, because of course that's not possible. So we need a sample. So what is a sample? That brings us to our CAM budget. Okay. So yes. Great answer. Subset of population that represents the whole population. So that brings us to our second question, which is what is a sample? So there are two types of population, our study population, and then there's our sample population. Study population is the whole population, so our universe. So the whole of the population that we are studying. In our case, the medical students of SLMC is our study population. Then we need to find a certain number of students, a certain particular number of students who are enough to represent for the whole of the study population. So that I don't have to ask every single person in SLMC to fill in my questionnaire. I simply go and ask those particular number of students to fill in the questionnaire that I need, to fill in the questionnaire that I need to be filled. So this is the concept behind sample. So a sample population is a part of the actual population or the study population who are very well representing the whole of the population. So if you take data from just the sample population, that data would be representative of the whole of the population, so that you won't have to take data from the whole population. Okay, that sample population alone would account for whole of the study population. This is the concept behind sample. And this sample isn't something we just randomly, sample size isn't something we just randomly, generate. There are particular formulas for generating a sample size. So, and those formulas are based on certain characteristics of the population. So they take into account the various things, and then a sample size is calculated based on the formula. So there are multiple different formulas for different types of researches. So if we are estimating a proportion, then there's a different formula. If we're estimating a if we're comparing two proportions, then there's a different formula. If we're estimating a single mean, then there's a different formula. And if we're like comparing two means, then there's a different formula. So there are different formulas of sample size calculation for different types of researches. Like we taste some rice to check the soil. Yes, exactly. Amazing. So moving next, we need to calculate a sample size. This is what we need to do next. So this is a video of me, or let's assume a video of us, all of us, calculating the sample size for our study. And I'm not going into the details of why I chose this formula. And here I'm just assume or just understand that we're calculating the sample size now. So for those of you who don't know how sample sizes are calculated, this might look like a bit complex, but just assume that we're doing it right now. You don't need to know the details for now, at least. So I'm putting in the means and standard deviations of both the groups, and then I am adjusting the confidence interval according to my need. And then this gives me the sample size. And our sample size in our case is 176. Why I took this formula, why I use the certain formula, and all of this, the answer simply comes from literature review. So, okay, moving next. Sampling techniques. Now, once you have calculated your sample size, uh, so in our case, the sample size is 176. Now, there must be a certain way of collecting the samples. Like, it's not like you just go and collect samples from whoever you want to. There's a certain pattern, a certain method, different methods, different proposed methods of collecting samples. And so it's important to discuss and to at least know the different methods out there of sample collection, sample size collection, like sampling techniques, which we call. So broadly, there are probability sampling and non-probability sampling. Probability sampling is the one where we randomly select a group of samples or a group of participants to, to fill in the questionnaire. And non-probability sampling would be, it's also called judgmental sampling. In non-probability sampling, the decision of participants who gets to participate in the study and who does not is very much based on the researcher's discretion, you can say. So the researcher is the one who decides who is going to include in the study or who is going to collect the data from. So this is the main difference of probability and non-probability sampling. So probability sampling, if I, for example, let's say there's a list of numbers from 1 to 100. Okay, again, a question. I'm going to the chart. There's a list of number from 1 to 100. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 till 100. And I ask you guys to select one number each. So select a number, just randomly, whatever you want, from 1 to 100. And we need to select a total of 20 numbers. So start selecting. Okay, great. So we see that okay, amazing. Okay, so we see that we get a random, a random assortment of numbers, a list of numbers selected from our original sample, which are totally random. So yes, exactly. This is what probability sampling is. So the chances of 29 getting selected are the same as the chances of 3 getting selected. This is probability sampling. So if there's a study population, a whole of the population, if I'm doing probability sampling, then the chances of one element of that study population to get selected is the same, exactly the same as the chances of any other element of that study population. This is probability sampling. And so probability sampling, of course, is better than non-probability sampling, where certain elements of a study population have more chances of getting selected compared to the study population. So non-probability sampling is also, therefore, it is called judgmental sampling or purposive sampling. So probability sampling, of course, is better. We have discussed this. Okay. And I'm closing the chart. And non-probability sampling is not that good. But in our case, so in our study, we're going to select convenience sampling. We're going to select non-probability sampling. And why I'm saying that is because the selection of sampling technique it depends on a lot of factors. So it depends on the time you can allocate to your study, depends on the amount of funds you have, depends on amount of energy you can, amount of energy you can afford for the study, and it depends on the accuracy of the results you desire, the precision of the study that you desire. So it depends on a lot of things. So in my case, in this study, I was mainly looking to complete the study. And being a medical student, I would say that there are a lot of things I need to take care of. And so I didn't really have that much time to go on, doing probability sampling or simple random sampling or any of the other forms of probability sampling. So I chose convenience sampling for my study, but that doesn't mean you have to choose it too. But this is what we chose in our study, because probability sampling, just how much it's amazing compared to non-probability sampling, but it has its own drawbacks as well. It requires more time, it requires more energy, it requires more funds, and there are a lot of other things. Okay, so if speaking of the students of SLMC, if I'm doing probability sampling, I'll have to prepare the list of each and every prepare a list of students of each of every class, and then from that list, I'll be selecting students on a random basis, or maybe as in systematic sampling, after every 10th person, I select a person. So that would be probability sampling in that case, but it would require a lot of time. It would require a lot of energy, and which was simply something I could not afford. Is someone saying something? More precise is probability sampling, of course. Probability sampling is going to give you more precise results, more accurate results, more valid results. Non-probability sampling doesn't give you that, but it does give you the convenience. Okay, but It a lot of the times it also depends. Like in some studies, I cannot really give you an example, but in some studies, especially in many of the cross-sectional studies, convenience sampling also does a really good job. So it depends on the circumstances. Okay, so these are the types. The types of further, this is simple random and haphazard sampling, convenience sampling. This is the unrestricted sampling, which means that the original population of the study population isn't restricted into any subgroups. Okay, whereas restricted sampling is the one where you restrict the original study population into let's say some strata, into clusters, into quotas. So that's what restricted sampling is, and that's what these types of uh, further types of sampling techniques are based on. We can go into the individual details of this if you want, but I would like to move forward because that would take a lot of time. Okay. So next up, we have decided upon the we have decided upon most of the things included in our study. Like we have decided upon the study design, we have decided upon the study type, we have decided upon the sample size, a lot of the things. So our recipe is very much coming together. Study population, sample size, sampling technique, duration of study, inclusion, exclusion criteria, data analysis. So study population is medical students of SLMC. Sample size is 176. Sampling technique is convenience sampling. Duration of study is from July till August. This is, when the study was conducted last year, it was conducted. The inclusion exclusion criteria has multiple points. Simply, inclusion exclusion criteria are a set of criteria you set, for to simply elaborate who to include and who to exclude from the study. So in this case, inclusion criteria was simply that medical students were included, and there was a proper definition proposed of day scholars and hostelers. Okay, so anyone other than them were excluded. So staff members and faculty members were excluded from the study, etc., etc. There were many points like these, and then data analysis, which was done using SPSS version 20. So these are the different points, and you need to enlist all of these points. One is missing from here, which is the study type. The study type is cross-sectional, so you need to state that as well. So these are all of the things that you state in your materials and methods section of your manuscript, which we are going to discuss later on. But these are the things you need to define before you, go on about executing your research. Okay, so we have defined all of this. Is this all clear till now? We have defined all of these things. Are these points clear? Like how we reached this conclusion, how we designed our study and everything. Is this clear? Okay, okay, great. Moving next, we need permission. Okay, what do you understand by this? So we cannot really go on conducting a research study without the permission of some review board, so there's always an authority of every institute. In every institute, there's an authority, which is the ethical review board of that institute, who are supervising or who are overlooking a research project. So basically, you need not really supervising, but you need their permission, their approval to conduct a research study. To execute a research study, you need their approval. And without their approval, you're not eligible, you're not allowed to conduct a study. Is someone saying something? Yes, yes. You're supposed to write each part of that in your research article. Uh, I would, if we have time in the end, I would show you how all those things are written in case of this research. I would like to show you the manuscript in the end. Okay. So now we need permission from the ethical review board, from the institutional review board. Every institution has this board, and so as ours. So for permission, we need to prepare a document which is called synopsis, as you can see here. So that document is called synopsis, and that document comprises of a certain headings, and it is about 4 to 10 pages long. So it depends. If it's just in our case, if it's only just 2 pages long, then that would also do. So synopsis is something which consists of the title of your research, then introduction and problem statement, So in introduction, you introduce your topic, and then you introduce your problem statement. Then literature review, what have you studied in the literature, what type of studies have done, and what those studies have stated regarding that particular problem. So literature review states that, and the research gap as well. Then you state the objectives of your study, your hypothesis, and finally the methodology. This methodology is where you state all of those things. The recipe ingredients, the study type, the study population, the sample size, the data collection tool, the data analysis tool, etc., etc. All of those things are going to come into methodology section, and then the references. So you're going to write a synopsis, prepare a synopsis, which is document, and then you are going to submit this synopsis to the review board of your institute. Moving next. What will happen when you submit your synopsis? So you have sent your synopsis to IRB, which is the Institutional Review Board. Then they call you, and then you're supposed to present your research proposal to them. In front of the whole board, you're supposed to present your research proposal, and then they'll question you. So after questioning, and after further discussion, they're going to maybe suggest improvement in your study design or in your study, or they maybe are trying to question the different aspects of your research. So why you took this topic, or why you are interested in studying, or what is the rationale behind this topic, etc., etc. There can be multiple questions. So they're basically trying to discuss the topic with you, and then they finally approve it if they think that research is going to add on to the existing literature. They finally approve it. So these are the different steps of getting the IRB letter. So IRB letter is what you're after. After you issued this letter, after the IRB, the Institutional Review Board, has approved your topic, they're going to issue a letter. That letter is your key to performing that research. That letter is your permission. Okay, this letter states that this individual or these individuals are eligible to perform this study in this institute. Okay, so this is IRB. Now, next up, we have been given the permission from IRB. Assume we have been given the permission, and now we're going to collect the data. Then next step is data collection. So for that, we have to, for that we have to generate a Google form. Of course, we have a questionnaire, but we're going to, circulate it through WhatsApp. So we need to form a Google form. And this is that Google form that you can see over here. It was quite a lengthy form. It was like consisting of some 40 questions, 40 questions. So quite a lengthy one. And I'm really, really grateful to the ones who filled this, because it was really easy to fill. It isn't really easy to fill a questionnaire this huge. So this is our questionnaire. We have prepared our Google form. Moving next. What do we do now? So now we beg. We simply beg. So I'm often confused which part of research is more tough, selecting a topic or doing this. Okay, so next up is we have collected our data, and now we have that data in the form of Google Sheets. So this is what happens once you have collected your data, and you have collected all the responses. So we had in this case collected some 180 responses, and all those responses were recorded, and this is the Google Sheets. I know you can see these numbers, and you might be wondering why are they all in numbers and not in words. So this is because I had coded all of those questions into scores. So we had used a scale. So a scale works like that. You actually give a certain score to every single response that you get, and those scores are then later on analyzed. So this is the reason why all of these responses are in the form of numbers. So this is our Google Sheet, just to show you that this is our Google Sheets and our data that we have collected. Now, the next step would be data analysis, as you all might have guessed. Okay. How long does it take? Depends on, depends on your institute. Sometimes you get it really early, depends on your review board. Sometimes it takes time. Okay. So coming towards data analysis, this is the part of research that a lot of us find very daunting, very intimidating. Many medical students find it really hard. Yes, there's a question here. How to score the questions. Good question, Mahnoor. So whenever you select a tool, whenever you select a questionnaire, a standardized questionnaire, in this case, it was short form 36. Okay. So I can actually show you how it was scored. It was a complex scale, it has multiple things. But just to give you the general idea, scoring is done such that every question in the questionnaire has a certain number. Every response to a question has a certain number. And then all of those numbers are then analyzed in a certain way, depending on the interpretation of that questionnaire. And then after they're calculated or analyzed in a certain way, you reach a certain score in the end. And that score is the final score. Then you can use that score or use that score in analysis of that variable with certain other variable. So let me just show you how we have scores question and how I scored that. If I can find the, okay, for that I'll have to end the show and just give me a minute so that I can find that for you. There's a document. Let me see if I can find that. Hmm. Okay, I couldn't find it right now, but I'll see if I get the document later on. I'll show you how I scored this because this was a certain particular questionnaire, a standardized questionnaire. So there's always a way to interpret different questionnaires. So if you are using a questionnaire, whatever the questionnaire might be, there's a particular way of interpreting that questionnaire, which is given on, you can easily find the interpretation of certain questions or certain questionnaires or certain different scores or scales on the internet. So if there's this one SF36, so if you simply type in on internet how this score is interpreted, it will give you the interpretation. And for example, if there's another score which I used, it was maladapted daydreaming 16, mad 16. So it was a score consisting of 16 questions, and then it had an interpretation of its own. So different scores have different interpretations, and I'll try to find that document and I'll try to show you how I calculated how I scored the questions and how reached the final, score of those. So we were discussing data analysis, and there are two types of statistics in analyzing the data. The first one are the descriptive stats, and the second one is the inferential stats. Descriptive stats, first you do the descriptive stats. So in descriptive stats, we calculate the percentages, we calculate the frequencies, we calculate the means and standard deviations of the different variables that we are studying. And in inferential statistics, we simply try to test the hypothesis. So inferential statistics include certain tests of testing the hypothesis, of analyzing the different variables that we're studying. So descriptive stats, in our case, we are going to calculate the frequency and percentages of qualitative variables and the means and standard deviations of quantitative variables. And that's how the descriptive stats work. And then the inferential statistics would be performing certain statistical tests on those variables to reach a certain conclusion. In my case, or in this case, there were two inferential, two tests of statistics which were applied. One was chi-square test, and the other one was independent sample t-test. So for deriving a correlation or an association between academic status and residential status, I'd used chi-square test, and for health status and residential status, I'd use independent sample t-test, and we'll see how that works later on. So this is just to give you a general idea of how data analysis was performed. Remember that data analysis is a huge topic, and it's a topic in its own. It requires a session of its own, and we do have a plan of conducting certain sessions on data analysis as well, on SPSS as well. There are various softwares for conducting data analysis. SPSS is one of them. So we'll see how that how that works, or how we go about conducting those sessions. But for now, just understand that first you calculate the descriptive statistics, which include the frequency, percentages, mean, median, mode, etc. of the different variables. And then you perform inferential statistics, which is the tests, the different types of tests you perform or you apply to your data to reach a certain conclusion. Okay. Now moving on next. So this over here is a look into the data that was being analyzed on SPSS, that was analyzed on SPSS. It was done and dusted. This is a view. So this is the data view. And here you can see it's very much like Excel. So the different variables, and you can see these are appearing in the form of numbers. I've changed that. And now this is all the scores, all the scoring, all the numbers again. And these are all the variables. So there were many variables. So you see this file is huge. So these are the 8 domains: physical functioning, role functioning, etc., etc. The 8 domains I calculated in the end of this. And this is the variable view. And here you can see the different variables listed over here. Okay, so this was the file. And now I'm going to show you the output file, which is consisting of the results, the tables of the results. So let's just see that. This is that. Okay. This is the output file, and here it shows you the frequency. First of all, there's frequency and percentages table, and then you can see these are some of the pie charts, and then you see these are some of the cross tabs where I've applied the chi-square test and the student D test, and etc., etc. Okay, so this was the output file, the output view. Okay. So this was just to show you how that data analysis has been done, and it has been done using SPSS version 20. Okay. Now moving next. These are the main results. Are there any questions? I'm still confused about who the IRB actually is. Can we say that before starting? Okay, I'll discuss the IRB with you later on. Okay, on to the results. I'm going to explain these results to you guys. There were many tables of results, multiple tables of results, but here I'm just going to show you these two main tables, the main variables, the correlation or the association of residential status with the marks, or with the academic status, as we say, and the association of residential status with the health status. So health status in this case is these 8 health domains, which were calculated using SF36. So the comparison of residential status with the marks. Here, as you see, the residential status, the day scholar and hostel, they are given over here. And then the marks percentages of last professional exam are given over here. And then chi-square test was applied, and there's this p-value. Remember, chi-square test is always applied when both of your variables are qualitative variable. Now this, of course, is a qualitative variable, whereas this is a quantitative variable. It was supposed to be a quantitative variable. Now this is a huge blunder that I made while I was designing the study, and it was only after I had reached this part of the study when I, when I thought, when I understood that I have made this mistake. I shouldn't have put this one question into these options. So in the question I had put the marks percentages of last professional exam into these four categories. Instead, I should have given them open liberty to state their actual marks. And that would have given me a wide variety of different options. I could have converted those into CGPA, or I could have analyzed that in another way, and that would have yielded certain valuable results. But in this way, the marks percentages, which was originally a quantitative variable, was converted into a qualitative variable, and it just gave me four categories. And so it wasn't really useful. So this was one mistake that I made during designing this study. But that doesn't matter, because right now the uh, the purpose of showing you all this is to just give you an idea of how the different variables are analyzed and how results are generated. So in the end, what you see is this p-value. And there's this p-value, which is basically your result. So we perform chi-square test on these two variables, and this chi-square test gives us the result in the form of this p-value. So what do you make of this p-value? How do you know if there is certain association between these two variables? Is there a certain association between these two variables or not? Yeah, less than 0.05, yes. So let me explain. This might need some explanation. So p-value is the probability value, and the p-value states that there is this percent chance of this association happening by chance. So if we say that the residential status and the marks percentage, or let's say in this case, academic performance or academic status, has an association. Okay, if we say these two have an association, and then there's this p-value. So this p-value says that this person, in this case, the p-value is 0.258. Okay, so this is 25.8%. So there's a 25.8% chance that this association has occurred by chance. So it 25.8% chance that this association is not real, it just occurred by luck. Okay, so 25.8 is a huge number. Okay, huge number saying that it was by chance, it was by luck, it was not an actual association, it was not statistically significant. So this result over here is not statistically significant, which means that the null hypothesis is true, which means that the alternative hypothesis has been nullified, which means that there is no association between residential status and the academic status of a person. So this is what this table says over here. This is what this p-value says. And so now I ask you, this is the table. These are the various health domains, the 8 health domains, as I said, and this is the residential status. This is the comparison of health domain with each of these health domains with the residential status, and this is the p-value. So tell me which of these p-values is significant. Look at all of these p-values and tell me which of these is significant. Vitality, yes. Great. Vitality, yes. Yes, physical functioning, the first one. So 0.04 and 0.03. Good. These are the two which are statistically significant, and the rest are not. So what does it mean? 0.04 means 4%, and 0.03 means 3%. So 4% chance that this association has occurred by luck. 4% is a really, uh, is a really small figure, a very small percentage. So of just a 4% chance of something occurring by luck means that it has a certain statistical significance. The association is present in that case. And here, as we say 0.03, so here we say that 3% chance of this, the association of this occurring by luck, then or by chance, then that means it is statistically significant. The rest of the results are not statistically significant. I hope you get the idea of p-value. If not, then I'll try explaining it more or elaborating it more. Why do we consider those luck responses so studiously in research? So let me explain. By luck, we mean by chance. So something happening. So there are two things we're studying, two variables. and we see that an association between those two variables has occurred by luck. So that means if that happens all the so for example, can I say, let's say we flip a coin and we want to see if a certain side of the coin comes most of the times, or is it just by luck, or is there really an association between the number of times you flip a coin, or between the number of times you flip a coin and between and that one side appearing. So how can I explain this thing? Okay, just give me a minute. If we're trying to study the association between two things, then there is the chance, मुझे आप बताएं कि is there a chance that certain association occurs in a certain setting by chance or by luck? Can something like that happen? कि गलती से या सिर्फ बाय चांस जो है वो दो चीजों में कोई एसोसिएशन कभी कहीं पे नजर आ गया? Can that happen? So wouldn't luck happening be what occurs actually? I mean, cross-sectional is essentially a snapshot, yes. So wouldn't luck happening be what occurs actually? नहीं, how can that be? मतलब आपने कोई काम किया और उस काम के बाद कोई उस काम का नतीजा निकला, तो एक एक वजह, एक चीज ये हो सकती है कि आपने काम किया और उसका एक रिजल्ट निकला, और वो जो रिजल्ट था उस काम का वही रिजल्ट निकलना था। और एक था कि आपने काम किया और उसका एक रिजल्ट निकला और वो बाय चांस निकला है। And now you're confused कि मैंने ये जो काम किया है, this thing, this act, और फिर उसका एक आउटकम है। So is there, now you're confused that is there a relationship between that act and that outcome? या तो वो बाय लक हुआ है, यानी आपने वो काम किया और बस किस्मत से या बाय चांस वो चीज हो गई उस तरह से, या फिर ये हो सकता है कि आपने काम किया और वाकयातन उसका वही रिजल्ट निकलना था जो निकला. So there is a certain relationship between your action and that outcome. So these are two possibilities. Now you're going to test which is which, or which is real. By chance ये होना जो है वो हुआ था, या फिर वाकई में कोई association है between the two variables. So so you calculate a number of observations. So you do that thing again and again and again, and you document the results. कि मैंने एक दफा किया ये हुआ, फिर दूसरी दफा किया ये हुआ, फिर तीसरी दफा किया ये हुआ. You calculate, you document a certain number of observations, और उसके बाद you have applied a certain statistical test to see if that association between your action and the outcome was by chance, or was there a certain particular association between those two things. And if your statistical test gives you a p-value of 0.05 or less, then that means it wasn't by chance. There is a statistically significant correlation between those two variables. So by chance 0.05 का मतलब ये है कि 5%, सिर्फ 5% chance है कि वो by luck हुआ था. 5% chance is very less. Okay, whereas अगर वो 5% chance से थोड़ा सा भी ज्यादा होता, so we would have said that it is not statistically significant. It was totally by chance. So these two things have no association with each other. It was only by chance. I'm sorry. P-value tells whether the two variables. Okay. Whether the two variables are related by chance or they are actually related with each other. Yes, is it? Yes, it's correct. If something is happening by chance in a sample size, then it might not be true for the whole population and only happening so the sample won't by luck. Is that right? No. This is why the concept of sampling technique exists. Our sample population basically represents the study population. This is what is happening in a nicely designed study. Okay. जब study को design किया जाता है, the sample size and the sampling technique is decided such that our sample population is representative of the actual population, so results are generalizable. So when I say that this is my sample population and this is the results derived from this sample population, then I would say that since this sample population was representative of the actual population, so my results are also generalizable and applicable to the actual population. Do you get it, Munazza Imran? Okay. Right. So to increase reliability, we essentially don't repeat the whole research, we apply the p-value test here. So to increase reliability, we can repeat the test. Not the test, we can repeat the research. That's the purpose of replicating researches. We replicate researches to know if a certain result that has been reached is certain or not, is right or not. रिसर्च का मतलब ये होता है, मकसद ये होता है, ये जो बार बार एक ही टॉपिक पे रिसर्च की जाती है, इसका मकसद ये होता है कि ताकि एम्पल अमाउंट ऑफ एविडेंस एग्जिस्ट आउट देयर टू से दैट अ सर्टेन एसोसिएशन बिटवीन टू थिंग्स एग्जिस्ट. आपके ख्याल में स्मोकिंग का और कैंसर का जो एसोसिएशन था वो क्या सिर्फ एक स्टडी या दो स्टडीज की बेसिस पे बन गया था? नहीं. Multiple studies were conducted and multiple results were derived, and when all of those results were pointing in the same direction कि हाँ जी कोई association बन रहा है. All of those studies were saying that yes, there's a certain association between smoking and cancer. The people who smoke, not all of them, but all the people who develop cancer have been previous smokers. तो जब ये बहुत सारी स्टडीज ने यही कहा, तो उसके बाद we established a relationship between smoking and certain types of cancer. So yes, हम स्टडीज को रिपीट करते हैं ताकि हम अपने रिजल्ट्स को जनरलाइज कर सकें, ताकि हम रिजल्ट्स को जो है वो फाइनलाइज कर सकें. नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन. A p-value tells us how likely it is that our results happen by chance. A smaller p-value is a chance. Yes. If something is happening by chance in a sample size, then it might not be true for the whole population we have now. Is that right? क्या लगी मैं देखो. Population. Some variables whose associations may vary from population to population. Of course, population या area of study जो भी है उस हिसाब से हमारी जो चीजें हैं, जो results हैं वो बदलते हैं. So a study conducted on a certain population on a certain topic would yield different results compared to a study conducted on the same topic but in a different population. So let's say in a different country, in totally different circumstances. So these variabilities in results do exist, and yes, they do occur. Is this concept of p-value clear, or if there is still any ambiguity, any confusion? Yes, that's why we research again and again. This thing about novelty is I consider. So we say that a lot of we hear it a lot that there should be novelty in research. That's good. That's great. And we undermine the importance of replication of studies. So if we don't replicate studies, if we don't do those studies again and again, then we cannot really reach a certain conclusion based on just some studies conducted on a certain topic. We need a significant amount of studies conducted on a certain topic to reach a certain conclusion. Okay, so that's why replication is important. Replication isn't all useless, as it has been, as we hear a lot that your idea should be novel, your research design should be novel. So replication isn't a bad thing essentially. In fact, it's a good thing. It helps reaching certain results. So any other confusion? वो जो बची थी जिससे p वैल्यू की confusion थी, who is that? Okay, so if it's clear now, then we're going to move forward. Okay, final step is documenting your study. We have reached our results. The final step is going to document our results, our study, and then publishing it. So for documenting, you need to write a whole manuscript. There's a whole session on this, which is going to be presented by Minahil. And she would describe in detail how a manuscript is written, or what are the various parts of manuscripts and how they're written. But just to briefly overview this part of research methodology, I'm just going to state some very briefly the basic steps of manuscript writing and the basic parts of a manuscript. So it starts with an abstract, then introduction, then materials and methods, results, discussions, and finally conclusion. You start writing your manuscript with the introduction, not with the abstract. Abstract is something which is written after all of the other parts are written. So introduction, which is going to be like 1 page or 1.5 page Word, MS Word page long, and it's going to consist of 3 to 4 paragraphs stating the stating your, first of all, explaining your research topic, and then explaining explaining your literature review, what you have studied in the previous in your literature search or in the previous articles, what has been published on that problem, and then you go on stating the research gap, and then finally you discuss your study and how novel is your study and how you're going to bridge that research gap. Things like those are covered in the introduction section. Then materials and methods. This is the section where someone was saying, are we going to state all those ingredients, all the recipe of our research into manuscript? This is the part, materials and methods. This is the part where you state all those ingredients. So what is your study type? When was it conducted? Where was it conducted? What was your sample size? What was your sampling technique? What was your data collection tool? How you collected your data? How you analyze your data? All of those things come under this one heading of materials and methods, and you have to state them explicitly. And then finally comes results. Results is, this is the section where I just usually copy paste my results table. I don't write a single line usually, but you can elaborate your results. But in my opinion, if you have pasted your table, your results table, then you don't really have to elaborate it. And then discussion. Discussion is the part of manuscript where you do discuss your results, elaborate them, and then you discuss them in context of some previous researches which have been conducted. So you cite different other researchers, and then you compare your results with those researchers, and then you give your own, opinion on the results and or as to why those results have occurred. So this is what the discussion part of the manuscript entails. And then finally, conclusion is simply a conclusion of your whole research in 4 to 5 lines, maybe. Abstract is a summary of all of those. So if you go to Google Scholar and you read the various abstracts of different research articles, you'll get an idea of what an abstract looks like. Okay. Now let's revise. अच्छा, before revising, कोई कह रहा था कि एक तो स्कोरिंग का मैंने दिखा दिया, और दूसरा ये कि I would want to show you the manuscript, the whole manuscript. So I'm sharing it right now. Can you see it? Can you see it? Can you all see it? I'm sorry. Okay. So this is the manuscript. This is the abstract. The abstract is simply the crux of your research. And then this is the introduction. This is a thesis, so don't go to the length of this manuscript. Okay. This is the literature review. Literature review is not a part of research article, but it is a main part of your thesis. Then these are the objectives. Of course, these also are not a part of your manuscript. These are the operational definitions of a day scholar, of a hostella, academic status, and health status. And this is, yes, someone was asking how I scored. So this is the scoring, the interpretation of SF36. So the scoring was such that these are the item numbers. Item numbers mean question numbers. So this is question number 1, 2, 20, 22, 34, 36. And similarly, these are the various question numbers. These are the options of those questions. So option 1 of question 1 to of these questions, option 2, option 3, option 4, option 5. And then what this says is that I need to change these options to these values. So change option 1 to 100, change option 2 to 75, change option 3 to 50, give option 4 a score of 25, give option 5 a score of 0. So this is how I recorded or changed every single option into different numbers. And this is every single question. As I said, there are 40 questions in that questionnaire. Sorry, there are 36 questions in this score. So all these questions were recorded in a certain way in certain numbers. And then what what we did is that there are 8 domains, as I said. It divides the health into 8 domains. So these are the number of items in each domain, and these are the number of questions. So what I did was I took these questions, and I took an average or calculated the average of the score of these questions, and that gave me the final score of physical functioning. Then I took the average of question 13, 14, 15, and 16, the scores of these questions, and that gave me this physical functioning. And then 17, 18, 19, and these are the questions, the items, and items which are scored. And then I took the average of these questions together to reach the 8 final domains. This is how I interpreted. So every score that you encounter in research has its own method of getting interpreted. So you will need, as you find a score or as you reach a score, you will see how to interpret the various scores. So if you are using a certain score, you'll need to see how that is interpreted, so that you can do the same in when you are conducting your research. And this is the materials and methods section. Is that study design, settings, study duration, sample size, sampling technique, inclusion criteria, exclusion criteria, equipment. This is quite detailed. In a research article, you don't really have to write all of this. And then the data collection procedure, data collection tool, methods of data collection, identification of study variables, dependent and independent variable. Independent variable was the residential status, dependent variable was academic and health status. Then data analysis procedure, I've elaborated the procedure, how I analyze the data using SPSS. And this is the Gantt chart. These are the results table. So I had just shown you 2 tables, whereas there are multiple tables. And then finally the discussion and the conclusion. So this brings us to the end of our manuscript. I'm going back to, can you all see the PowerPoint?
Yes, it
Scoring
is
is
visible.
usually, okay, wait a second. No, thesis was actually, this research was part of my CMED thesis, community medicine thesis. But you don't have to do thesis. If you're doing a research article, you don't have to write a thesis. You just simply have to document it in the form of a research article. Okay, finally, we are done with our presentation and we are done with our study. So congratulations, everyone. We have done a research project. So now we are going to revise the various steps that we did. Please just tell me, what was the first step? Find a problem, yes. Find a problem was the first. Excuse my handwriting. The second one was forming a research question. Yes, true. But first we did, it's not a rigid sequence like doing literature review first and then forming a research question or a hypothesis. So we did literature review after that, and then we formulated a hypothesis. Okay, literature review. Then we formulated our hypothesis. And then what was the fourth step? Okay, the first step was designing your study. And by designing, I mean all the things we did. Designing selecting the study type, calculating the sample size, then calculating the sampling technique. All of that was included in designing part. After designing, what we did. After designing, first the difference between thesis and research paper, significance of writing a thesis. After, yes, we need permission. After designing, we need permission. Before execution of your study, just remember, before execution of your study, you need permission. For that permission, you need to write a synopsis and send it to IRB, and then IRB, after you present your research over there, they give you an IRB letter. IRB approval, okay. Sixth step was Executing the study. Yes, data collection. Forming a questionnaire and collecting your data. Data collection. Okay, 7. Data analysis. Good. Data analysis. Analyzing your data. Okay. Here's was documentation. Yes, summarize it or simply documenting your data. So these are the different steps of research methodology, and I try to explain them. Although I understand that I explained these steps quite briefly, I didn't go into the details of any of these steps, and I just explained some really basic things to you guys. But this is what I could do at best in a 1 hour long session, and let's see if you guys have any questions. Let's questions. What's the difference between thesis and research paper? So thesis is a documentation of your research, which is quite detailed. A research article is very brief compared to a thesis. This is the major difference that usually I see. A research article is what you submit to a journal. Journals don't accept theses because theses are long and lengthy and detailed pieces like entailing every aspect of your research, every brief detail about your research. Whereas research article is brief and crisp and to the point. So a research article or a research paper is somewhat that is something that gets published in a uh, um, yeah, in a journal, whereas a thesis is something you write for, like if you're a PhD student or if you're doing MPhil, you write thesis. Also in fourth year of MBBS, we write thesis. Yes, we don't write research article, we write a whole thesis of whatever research we're conducting. I really did not know the R of research before. Thank you, William. Thank you. The session wasn't basically designed to um, give you the details of everything. Actually, if you come to the various steps, like the problem, finding a problem, then literature review, then hypothesis formulation, then designing the research, permission, data collection, data analysis, all of these things are a topic uh, on its own. They're a topic of their own. So we need different sessions on each and every one of these. So we're going to have a session on literature review tomorrow. Then the analysis of an article, critical analysis of an article by Jose, and that's going to be a very, very, very useful session. As I said, I gave you a pro tip in between that if you are confused at any point while doing research, while doing your research, while designing your research, or simply at any point, then you simply have to do literature review. If you're expert at that, you're going to find the answer in some of the article which is out there. You're going to find some article which or some research which someone else has done before, and then you'll get a general idea or a basic idea of how you should be dealing with that problem. So literature review and critical analysis of an article is something which is very, very basic and which is very, very important and essential to conducting a research yourself. And once you have designed your study, then you simply have to execute it. And execution, like data collection, as I said, data collection is a lot tough. It's more to do with, the people or the participants, and most of the people are not very cooperative, honestly. So this is a tough part of research. And then data analysis, it might seem hard, it might seem complicated, but it is one of the steps of research that I enjoy a lot. I I literally enjoy data analysis a lot. And then finally, documentation as well, because I love writing. So if you're someone who loves writing, then this is for you, documentation, manuscript writing. So thank you, Mahnoor. Okay. Any questions? Thank you, Manuja.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Raima. Okay, I have taken quite a lot of your time. It's 10:46. The session was supposed to end at 10 o'clock. So thank you for staying this long.
Thank you very much, Maida, for such an exceptional lecture and giving each part of research methodology shortly and precisely. I'm sure that the students have learned a lot from this lesson, and they will do their best in doing the research, in writing each part of the research article. And I hope that the students have understood the general steps of research methodology. And if you have still any question, you can ask in the group, or you can approach anyone from our team of RAS Research and Academic Society, Sahiwal Medical College. Thank you very much. Meet you tomorrow at the session at 9 p.m. inshallah. Jazakallah.